me on this one. Have you ever been in the awkward position of lending money to family and friends? Or maybe they borrow, but they never repay. Or they use your vacation home, but they don't offer to help foot the bill. With advice on how to handle our money etiquette issues, please welcome financial expert Bruce Sellery. Help us out.
Tracy Moore. I have all of the answers.
You have all the answers?
All the answers. Some of this stuff has happened to me.
Oh my gosh, some of this stuff has happened to me, and I'm so not going to say which ones because my whole family's watching, and they will know immediately. Okay, so let me just go through some of these scenarios. We were talking about these in the meeting, and we were like, oh, these are brutal.
The worst.
So you lend money to a friend, she hasn't paid you back because she doesn't have the money, and then the next time you see her, she's in a new coat.
Hopefully she shoplifted the coat.
I hope
and then it's a whole other thing.
I hope so. How about this? The check arrives. You only had a salad and a small glass of wine because you're on a tight budget. Your friend had the seafood platter. She had the lobster. She had 3 fancy cocktails, and she wants to split the bill. What do you do?
And
Maybe
she's hammered when she suggests it. She's like, another thing. My husband.
Okay, here's a good one. You've been invited to a wedding. The invitation asks for money as a gift, and they give you their banking info.
Hey, it's much more convenient.
Is that okay with you guys? It's happening a lot now. So you actually get the direct deposit information in the wedding invitation, and some people would argue this just makes it easier.
It does make it easier.
But what do you think? Like, how do you respond?
On that one in particular, I think it opens up one of my big points here, which is culture. Culture differences, right? So if we talk about the Chinese culture and weddings, including cash as a gift, usually in a red envelope is what it's supposed to include, that makes perfect sense. So it depends really on the cultural context.
Okay, all right. I'm going to throw one more out there.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Friends ask you just outright how much you paid for your house or for your vacation, or how much you make.
Yeah.
So I don't have friends like that. I have maybe 1 or 2 friends in the industry, and we'll actually be really honest about our rates because we need to have something to compare. But that's not something that anyone can just come in and say, so
hey,
how much
Trace, how much you make? How much you pay for that? That wedding ring, how much is that worth?
Right?
So what is money etiquette? It is a code of polite behavior. It's a code of polite behavior. And that differs depending on a whole bunch of elements, right? There's a bunch of layers. So first of all, talk about relationships. So I have the traditional best friend. There is nothing I can't ask her. There is nothing she can't tell me.
Totally.
But that is a sacred relationship. It would be very different if an acquaintance or someone else just asked me something out of the blue. The second is, what income level are you at? Because if you're at a very different, so if you're ultra wealthy, you don't talk about money in the same way because you just assume everybody has lots of money. Why do we need to talk about it? I don't care how much you paid for your house in that fancy neighborhood because we got lots of it. The third one is, where do you live? So I used to live in New York City. And in New York City, talking about real estate and what you paid, it's like more interesting than the weather. You talk about it all the time. So we come back to Toronto and I ask someone, oh, you're listing your house. What are you listing it for? And he was like, oh my God. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'll look it up on the website. Like, I can find that information. I don't need the CIA to get that information for me. I can get that information. So it depends. Let me just pick up on one more thing on the cultural front, is some examples. So Chinese people, and then I'm generalizing here, but white envelope, money at funerals.
Oh,
they contribute money at funerals in that culture. In the Filipino culture, it's a very communal-oriented culture. Privacy is less of a value than perhaps in other cultures. So they may talk more openly about what you paid for it and not think, ooh, I don't know if that's appropriate. And in the Dutch culture, spending money can be seen as a vice and a bit of a show-off. So it's almost the opposite to keeping up with the Joneses. So you wouldn't like talk about, oh, this little thing, I don't even know. You would just kind of downplay it a little bit. So I think that's important to know because sometimes we think of what is polite as being like the law, and it really depends on the perspective that you have, how you come to it. It
really does. I mean, culture for sure is a huge thing, and you should know sort of, if you know the person, you should know if you can go there with the person. Generally speaking, what can we talk about when it comes to money, and what should we just not talk about?
We should not talk about salary, we should not talk about investments, and we should not talk about big purchases, except there are 2 exceptions. Except if you're asking for a good reason. Now, some people are like, yeah, because I'm curious, because I'm a nosy Nancy. That's a good reason. No, but sometimes it's a good reason. Say you're interviewing for a job, and a friend who you're relatively close to works for that company.
Okay.
Maybe they work in HR. Is like, what should I expect on the salary range here?
Yeah.
Are there things that I should negotiate? Second is if you know them well enough for them to decline and have it be really easy.
Okay.
So if I were to ask something to someone and they have full permission to decline, then it's less of a deal because you've said, I was like, I know it was a personal question, but I want to ask you if that's something. So you just took a trip to Cancun, you stayed at that resort. Do you mind if I ask you how much that cost?
Right.
And you would say, I'm not going to tell you that. Or, yeah, I will, and here's what it was.
Okay, and you kind of have to put that little that caveat around it so that people understand you're also from this planet and you understand how inappropriate this is.
Yes.
Like, I know this is weird, but could you just... what are some of the other pitfalls when it comes to money etiquette?
Don't comment on how other people spend their money.
Right.
So in the example of the friend who owes you money and they bought an expensive coat, you can't make that link. What you can say is, we need to talk about how you're going to repay the money that you owe me. Which, first of all, don't lend money to friends. Just don't lend money to friends. But if you did, talk about how you can get it paid back. Second, don't complain about your money problems with people who don't make as much as you.
Yes.
So you was like, you know, Tracy,
don't do it.
Do you know how expensive it is to repair my Tesla? It is just
right.
on my home in Hawaii. The property management fee is just the worst.
Unbelievable.
You just sound like a total heel.
Yes. Or I was at the Four Seasons. The service is terrible.
You can imagine it's gone so.
Like,
We only go to the Ritz now.
Only
from
the
here
Ritz.
on in. One other thing: consider other people's financial situation before you plan something, because so often you'll get an invitation and you'll think, oh, do they think I'm Madonna?
Yeah.
Because I don't stay there or consume in that way, and people can be very, very inconsiderate on that stuff.
What about the you are the one that's hosting all the time and your family comes over and no one's giving you money?
Oh, that one's easy.
Do you just say something?
Yeah. You just say that. You say, here's what I need you to bring. I need you to bring 4 bottles of red, 4 bottles of white, and 2 cases of beer.
Or bring me $400.
Yeah. But I am. So here's my overarching point. My overarching point on money etiquette is let's not get too polite. Let's find a way to talk about stuff. Let's not be so careful. Let's extend our comfort zone and talk about money in a more open way.
Okay, I like that. I do
it.
like that. You can find more of Bruce's financial tips and advice on Money Sense. Thank you so much for
My
that.
pleasure.
I could talk about